What's something people don't know about James Monroe? His legacy shaped the very fabric of American foreign policy. James Monroe, the fifth President of the United States, often stands in the shadow of his more prominent contemporaries. Overshadowed by the brilliance of Jefferson or the charisma of Jackson, Monroe's contributions sometimes fade into the background. Yet to understand the man behind the Monroe Doctrine is to understand a pivotal figure in American history. Monroe's story is one of steady, unwavering commitment to the ideals of the newly formed republic. Born in colonial Virginia, Monroe's life was intertwined with the birth pangs of a nation. He experienced the fight for independence and the struggle for unity. Monroe navigated these turbulent waters with quiet determination. Monroe's legacy is multifaceted, encompassing domestic achievements and a foreign policy doctrine that continues to resonate. His presidency, often dubbed the era of good feelings, reflected national unity and optimism. The acquisition of Florida and the exploration of the Louisiana Purchase were key achievements. The Monroe Doctrine, articulated in 1823, warned European powers against interfering in the Western Hemisphere. James Monroe's story begins in Westmoreland County, Virginia, a region steeped in history and tradition. Born in 1758, Monroe entered a world on the cusp of immense change. The American colonies were beginning to experience the growing pains of a nation on the verge of independence. Westmoreland County embodied the spirit of colonial Virginia. The Monroe family enjoyed a comfortable existence as landowners. His father, Spence Monroe, was a planter and a carpenter. Spence Monroe instilled in James Monroe the importance of hard work and self-reliance. This blend of practicality and social standing defined Monroe's life. Life in Tidewater, Virginia, revolved around the rhythms of the land. Agriculture dominated the economy, and the social hierarchy reflected the distribution of land ownership. The Monroe family, while not among the wealthiest planters, held a respected position within this society. Young James grew up surrounded by the trappings of Southern gentry, accustomed to a life of relative comfort and privilege. Despite their status, they were not immune to the hardships of colonial life. The threat of disease, the uncertainties of weather, and the ever-present dangers of the frontier were constant reminders of the fragility of existence. These experiences instilled in James a sense of resilience and a deep appreciation for the land and its bounty. Education was highly valued within the Tidewater gentry, seen as both a mark of social standing and a pathway to success. James received a rudimentary education at home before attending a local school. While details of his early schooling remain scarce, it is clear that he received a solid grounding in the classics, in history, and in the principles of rhetoric, skills that would prove invaluable in his later political career. Family played a pivotal role in shaping James Monroe's character. He was particularly close to his mother, Elizabeth, who instilled in him a strong sense of morality and a deep religious faith. From his father, Spence, he inherited a practical nature and a commitment to hard work. The Monroe household, while not without its challenges, provided a stable and loving environment for young James to thrive. Tragedy struck the family when James was just 10 years old. His father passed away, leaving Elizabeth to raise their 4 children alone. This loss had a profound impact on James, forcing him to mature quickly and assume responsibilities beyond his years. He helped his mother manage the family farm and care for his younger siblings, experiences that instilled in him a sense of duty and self-reliance. Despite the challenges they faced, the Monroe family remained closely knit. James's uncles, particularly Joseph Jones, a prominent lawyer and politician, stepped in to provide guidance and support. These family connections would prove invaluable to James as he navigated the complexities of Virginia society and embarked on his own political career. As James Monroe grew older, he began to exhibit a thirst for knowledge and a keen interest in the world beyond Westmoreland County. He devoured books from his uncle's library, immersing himself in history, philosophy, and the writings of Enlightenment thinkers. These intellectual pursuits sparked within James a desire to make his own mark on the world. The political climate of the time also left an indelible impression on young Monroe. The growing tensions between Great Britain and the American colonies were impossible to ignore. Conversations at the dinner table often revolved around issues of taxation, representation, and the rights of colonists. These discussions ignited within James a sense of patriotism and a growing awareness of the injustices faced by the colonies. The seeds of ambition, sown in the fertile ground of Westmoreland County, began to take root. James Monroe, the planter's son, would soon embark on a path that would lead him to the battlefields of the American Revolution and, ultimately, to the highest office in the land. For a young man of ambition in colonial Virginia, education was a gateway to influence. James Monroe approached his studies with diligence, eager to make his mark. His early education remains fragmented, but he was hungry for knowledge, eager to absorb lessons for a life beyond Westmoreland County. Monroe's education likely began at home, with his mother or a private tutor, learning reading, writing, and arithmetic. As James grew older, his education transitioned to a local schoolhouse with other prominent family sons. The curriculum emphasized Greek and Roman literature, history, and philosophy, with works of Homer, Virgil, and Cicero. These texts sparked his imagination and instilled a deep appreciation for language and rhetoric. Around the age of 16, his education took a significant step forward with James' enrollment at Campbell Academy. Founded by Reverend Alexander Campbell, the academy aimed to provide young men with a rigorous curriculum. This move represented an immersion into a more challenging academic environment. Campbell Academy, later Hampton-Sydney College, attracted students for its academic excellence. The curriculum encompassed classics, mathematics, natural philosophy, and modern languages. This blend of approaches provided Monroe with a well-rounded education. At Campbell Academy, H's was surrounded by ambitious young men, all eager to make their mark. In 1774, at 16, James enrolled at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. William and Mary, one of the oldest and most prestigious institutions, reflected the Enlightenment's intellectual currents. Moving to Williamsburg meant immersing in a world of ideas, debates, and social circles. The college was a hotbed of revolutionary fervor. Students engaged in lively discussions about the rights of man and American independence. Monroe's views on liberty and self-governance took shape amidst these debates. The college provided an education beyond rote learning. He delved into the writings of Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu. These explorations ignited passion for political philosophy and self-governance. Among the luminaries at the College of William and Mary, none impacted James Monroe more than George Wythe. A renowned legal scholar and signer of the Declaration of Independence, Wythe embodied the ideals of the American Revolution. Wythe recognized Monroe's intellect and took him under his wing, becoming a mentor and guiding force. Wythe's influence extended beyond the classroom, inviting Monroe to his home for intellectual discourse. These gatherings allowed Monroe to engage in debates and refine his understanding of governance. Under Wythe's guidance, I immersed myself in the study of law and the principles of a just society. This education, infused with Wythe's commitment to justice, was invaluable in Monroe's public service career. As James Monroe came of age, the legal profession held a particular allure for young men of ambition and intellect. Monroe excelled at the College of William and Mary under George Wythe, destined for a career in law. After graduating in 1776, Monroe returned to Westmoreland County, filled with legal knowledge. Wythe's mentorship shaped Monroe's legal acumen and understanding of justice. The American Revolution ignited patriotism, and Monroe felt the call to arms. The ideals of liberty and self-governance resonated deeply. The courtroom, it seemed, would have to wait. The American Revolution was not merely a conflict between nations, but a crucible that forged a new national identity. The battlefields tested Monroe's courage and commitment, shaping him into a leader. In 1775, news of Lexington and Concord led Monroe and fellow students to form a militia. Despite his inexperience, he rose through the ranks, earning respect. The early days were a time of intense learning for Monroe and his fellow soldiers. The Battle of Trenton, a pivotal victory for the Continental Army in the winter of 1776, proved transformative for James Monroe. Monroe, now a lieutenant, played a key role, leading his men with courage and skill. During the fighting, Monroe sustained a serious injury when a musket ball severed an artery in his shoulder. The wound left him with a lifelong scar, a reminder of his sacrifices. The American Revolution was not only a war for independence, but also a crucible in which a new generation of American leaders was forged. The battlefield tested James' courage, resilience, and his leadership abilities, shaping him into a man capable of navigating the complexities of politics and diplomacy. Monroe's military service had brought him face to face with the realities of power, the fragility of human life, and the importance of unity and purpose in overcoming adversity. These experiences will stay with him long after the last shots of the revolution are fired, shaping his worldview, his political philosophy, and approach to leadership. As the war drew to a close, Monroe, like many of his fellow soldiers, faced an uncertain future. The fledgling nation, still grappling with the challenges of self-governance, offered both opportunities and dangers. The skills he honed on the battlefield, leadership, decisiveness, and a deep understanding of the human condition, would prove to be invaluable assets as he embarked on a new chapter in his life. A chapter that would see him rise to the highest office in the land. In the aftermath of the Revolutionary War, James Monroe turned his attention to matters of the heart. In 1786, he married Elizabeth Courtwright, a young woman from a prominent New York family.
It was a union of hearts and minds, a testament to love and companionship.
Elizabeth, known as Eliza, was a woman of remarkable grace and intelligence.
My upbringing in New York City contrasted with James's rural Virginia, yet our bond strengthened.
Their marriage, tested by time and tragedy, remained unbreakable. The life of James Monroe, marked by significant achievements, was not without personal trials and tragedies.
Through it all, I stood by my husband's side, a pillar of strength and unwavering support.
Tragedy struck in 1789 with the death of their first child, Eliza, leaving an unfillable void.
These personal tragedies deepened my compassion and commitment to easing the suffering of others.
Amidst the tumult of political life and the emotional burdens of public service, James Monroe found solace and renewal in the embrace of nature.
The land, it speaks to me. Each ride brings a sense of peace, a moment to breathe and reflect.
Monroe's love of nature extended beyond the saddle. He took great pride in his Virginia estate, Oak Hill, immersing himself in the details of its management, finding satisfaction in the cycle of planting and harvest, in the tending of livestock, and in the preservation of the land for future generations.
Oak Hill is our sanctuary. Here we find peace away from the pressures of Washington, D.C. I find joy in the gardens, in the simple pleasures of rural life.
Their shared love of nature, their appreciation for the beauty and bounty of the land, provided a common ground that strengthened their bond and sustained them through the challenges of public life. The year 1775 dawned with an unsettling tension hanging heavy in the air. The discontent between the American colonies and Great Britain erupted into conflict at Lexington and Concord.
At 17, I abandoned my studies and enlisted in the Continental Army.
He joined the 3rd Virginia Regiment from Westmoreland County.
Led by experienced men, they saw in me a spark of leadership.
Monroe's decision was rooted in principle, believing the rights of man were worth fighting for. The early months of the Revolutionary War were a harsh awakening for the untested Continental Army. Ill-equipped, lacking in discipline, and facing a formidable foe in the British Army, the Americans suffered a series of demoralizing defeats.
In the summer of 1776, the British, under the command of General William Howe, launched a massive invasion of New York City. We were outnumbered and outmaneuvered, forced to retreat, leaving the city in enemy hands.
Monroe, now a lieutenant, participated in the chaotic retreat, witnessing firsthand the horrors of war, the carnage of battle, and the despair of defeat.
The thrill of combat, the adrenaline rush, the camaraderie, it all bound us together in the face of death. These early experiences, though forged in the crucible of defeat, were invaluable lessons in leadership, courage, and the complexities of war.
He had also witnessed the resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering courage of ordinary men facing extraordinary circumstances. These experiences would shape Monroe's future, teaching him lessons that would serve him well in the years to come. As the Revolutionary War dragged on, James Monroe's courage and commitment did not go unnoticed.
He distinguished himself in battle, demonstrating tactical acumen that belied his youth.
He earned the respect of his men through determination and shared dangers.
At the Battle of Trenton, Monroe played a pivotal role in securing a victory.
Leading men across the icy Delaware, Monroe helped overwhelm the Hessian defenses. His actions earned him a promotion to captain. War is a brutal master, leaving its mark on bodies and souls. James Monroe survived the revolution but bore scars. At Trenton, a musket ball tore through his shoulder. He survived thanks to a fellow soldier and a brave surgeon. The scar was a reminder of his sacrifices, yet the emotional toll of war was the most enduring. The echoes of musket fire had barely faded when James Monroe returned to Virginia, stirred by the ideals for which he had fought. The revolution transformed him from an ambitious student into a seasoned soldier. The battlefields had been won, but the true test establishing a just government lay ahead.
For Monroe, the transition from soldier to statesman was natural. Lessons from the battlefield, unity, leadership, and a common goal would serve him well. He gained admission to the Virginia bar in 1782, eager to serve his state and nation.
The political landscape of post-revolutionary Virginia was vibrant and tumultuous. The spirit of independence now infused the halls of government.
A new generation of leaders, many of them war veterans, emerged.
James Monroe, a war hero, quickly became a rising star in Virginia politics. In 1782, at 24, Monroe was elected to the House of Delegates.
Monroe's rise was meteoric, gaining respect and influence.
His wartime experiences instilled a deep skepticism of centralized power. The 1780s saw the rise of the first-party system, with Federalists favoring a strong central government and Democratic Republicans championing states' rights.
James Monroe, influenced by his Revolutionary War experiences, aligned with the Democratic Republicans.
Led by Thomas Jefferson, they envisioned an agrarian republic with power in the hands of the people.
They opposed Federalist centralization, fearing it threatened state sovereignty and individual liberties.
In 1794, President Washington appointed James Monroe as the United States Minister to France. It was a critical juncture in the young nation's history.
The French Revolution had descended into a maelstrom of violence and instability, culminating in the Reign of Terror.
European powers were at war, and the United States struggled to maintain its neutrality. For Monroe, this was a baptism by fire.
He arrived in Paris to a tumultuous reception, caught between the idealism of the French revolutionaries and suspicion.
Monroe negotiated the release of American citizens and ships seized by French privateers, but maintaining neutrality proved futile. James Monroe's tenure as minister to France was fraught with peril from the outset. The French Revolution, initially embraced by many Americans as a beacon of liberty, had descended into a chaotic and bloody affair. The Reign of Terror, with its mass executions and political purges, had sent shockwaves across Europe and cast a long shadow over Franco-American relations.
The French government, locked in a desperate struggle with Great Britain, viewed the United States with a mix of suspicion and hope, eager to exploit any opportunity to weaken their enemy.
Monroe arrived in Paris in 1794. His instructions from President Washington clear: maintain American neutrality and safeguard American interests amidst the maelstrom of European conflict.
The French government, led by the Committee of Public Safety, a group of radical revolutionaries who held sway over the National Convention, greeted Monroe with a mixture of enthusiasm and suspicion.
Monroe, walking a diplomatic tightrope, sought to reassure the French of American goodwill while making it clear that the United States would not be drawn into a conflict that did not directly threaten its interests. Tensions between the United States and France escalated in 1795 with the signing of the Jay Treaty, negotiated by John Jay and the British government. Many Americans saw it as a betrayal of French interests and a tilt towards Great Britain.
Outraged, France recalled their ambassador and began seizing American ships. Monroe, caught in the crossfire, struggled to defend the treaty.
His efforts fell on deaf ears in Paris, despite advocating for peace. Monroe argued the treaty did not violate Franco-American friendship, but anger rose in both capitals. In 1796, President Washington decided to recall James Monroe from Paris. The recall was not due to Monroe's failings, but the untenable situation.
The French government, angered by Monroe's perceived sympathies, undermined his authority. Monroe's recall sparked controversy in the United States. His supporters saw it as a Federalist maneuver to silence a critic.
Diplomatic interlude. Minister to Great Britain. Following his tumultuous tenure as Minister to France, James Monroe returned to the United States.
However, my diplomatic skills would soon be called upon once more.
In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson appointed Monroe as Minister to Great Britain. Monroe arrived in London at a time of relative peace. Monroe's tenure in London was not without its challenges. Despite these challenges, Monroe managed to maintain cordial relations with the British government. A nation united. The year 1817 dawned with a sense of optimism and renewal sweeping across the young United States. The War of 1812 had tested the nation's resolve, but left a surge of national pride and a yearning for unity.
As a veteran of the Revolution and a seasoned diplomat, I assumed the presidency, signaling a desire for healing and unity.
Monroe's inauguration was a testament to the spirit of unity that permeated the nation. The Democratic-Republican Party embraced reconciliation, their message of unity resonating across the land. The rise of nationalism. The War of 1812 ignited a surge of nationalism in the United States. The young nation emerged with confidence and a determination to forge its own destiny.
This nationalism permeated politics, economics, art, and literature.
James Monroe harnessed this sentiment to advance his vision of a strong nation. He appointed visionaries like John Quincy Adams and John C. Calhoun to his cabinet.
Under Monroe, the US embarked on national development. Roads and canals were built, fostering economic growth.
The National Bank was revived, providing a stable currency. The military, strengthened post-war of 1812, stood ready to defend the nation. Domestic tranquility and economic growth. The era of good feelings marked a period of domestic tranquility and economic growth. Americans, united by a sense of national purpose, focused on building a prosperous future. The Industrial Revolution began to take root in the United States. Monroe's economic policies fostered an environment conducive to growth. Tariffs protected industries, and internal improvements facilitated trade. The shadow of sectionalism. Despite the unity of the era of good feelings, sectionalism cast a shadow, leading to civil war. Sectionalism, fueled by slavery, intensified during Monroe's presidency. Westward expansion heightened these tensions. New states threatened the balance of power in the Senate. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 temporarily maintained this balance, but it only postponed the inevitable conflict over slavery, a legacy of expansion. James Monroe's presidency left an indelible mark on the nation's history, defined by territorial expansion and economic growth. The era of good feelings represented a period of national unity and optimism. Under Monroe's leadership, the US acquired Florida from Spain in the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819. The Monroe Doctrine of 1823 warned European powers against interfering in the Western Hemisphere. The year 1823 marked a pivotal moment in the history of the United States. The Napoleonic Wars had ended, leaving a power vacuum. European powers, their treasuries depleted, cast a wary eye towards the Americas.
Against this backdrop, I, James Monroe, issued a bold declaration known as the Monroe Doctrine.
The Monroe Doctrine was a declaration of American exceptionalism. It proclaimed that the United States would no longer tolerate European interference in the Western Hemisphere. James Monroe, a man of quiet determination, understood the stakes involved in this delicate geopolitical balancing act. He had witnessed the dangers of European entanglement during his time as minister to France.
The Monroe Doctrine, articulated on December 2, 1823, sought to balance American assertiveness with respect for international norms. It was a warning that any European attempt to reassert dominance in the Americas would be seen as a threat.
The doctrine's message was clear. The Americas were no longer open for colonization. Any attempt to do so would be met with American opposition. The Monroe Doctrine was a complex document addressing the geopolitical realities of the time. It rested on two principles: non-colonization and non-intervention.
Non-colonization declared the Americas closed to European powers. This challenged European supremacy and asserted American dominance.
Non-intervention meant the US wouldn't interfere in European affairs, nor tolerate European interference in the Americas. Though isolationist, the doctrine hinted at future American interventionism. The Monroe Doctrine, a bold declaration protecting the Americas from European imperialism, has been both praised and criticized. It justified actions from the annexation of Texas to the Spanish-American War. The Roosevelt Corollary expanded this, allowing US intervention in Latin America. The doctrine's legacy is complex, marked by both intervention and the principle of non-interference. James Monroe, though often overshadowed by the more flamboyant personalities of his era, left an indelible mark on American history. The Monroe Doctrine asserted American dominance in the Western Hemisphere, resonating in the halls of power. Its principles are invoked, debated, and reinterpreted to this day. A doctrine born in an era of American weakness defined the nation's role as a global superpower. The Americas were no longer open for colonization or interference by European powers. The Monroe Doctrine served as a powerful symbol of American resolve. It helped shape international law, establishing non-interference in sovereign nations' affairs, shaping a nation's destiny. The Monroe Doctrine played a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of the United States. It marked a turning point in American foreign policy. The doctrine reflected a belief in the nation's unique destiny. It coincided with a period of rapid westward expansion, declaring the Americas off-limits to European colonization. The Monroe Doctrine had a profound impact on American domestic politics. It fostered a sense of national unity and exceptionalism. Monroe's place in the Pantheon. James Monroe's place in the pantheon of American presidents is a curious one. He is often remembered as the author of the Monroe Doctrine. Yet reducing Monroe's legacy to a single doctrine is a disservice. Monroe was shaped by the ideals of the American Revolution. He served as a soldier, diplomat, statesman, and president. He was a staunch advocate for democratic Republican principles. Monroe's presidency was marked by the era of good feeling.